welcome to the Nerd Card. We're finally here. It is our 4 for the 4th, and this will be our first episode of that, and we're going to be discussing, of course,
the original trilogy.
We're going to do it in the exact same order that they did the movies.
Yep.
And that's going to be awesome.
Because why wouldn't we?
Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we start with number 4?
Of course not, because it's the first one that was released. You know, Star Wars, back when Star Wars A New Hope was released, it was just Star Wars.
Right, exactly.
You know, there wasn't title headings. I don't even think on the very first movie, when you see the original, like for me, it would have been VHS tapes. Mm-hmm. I don't think it actually even says A New Hope, or it might. I don't recall.
I don't believe
They've changed it so many times over the years that I don't remember.
Well, and that's something we've talked about offline, is that was George's intention. Because you cannot see the original theatrical cuts of any of the Star Wars movies.
No.
They're not accessible. They don't exist anymore.
I'm not sure that actually the Masters even exist anymore.
It's entirely possible.
I mean, George might have one in a vault locked away somewhere for posterity, and no one will know until he passes away and it's in his will. I mean,
that's possible.
Other than that, no, I don't think they're out there. I mean, they do have restored, I mean, with the releases they just did of the Skywalker saga a few months ago. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's 4K DI masters of all the Star Wars movies at this point.
Sure.
Which is preservation, of course, going forward. But as you said, I mean, George had a vision.
Changed.
So many changes. But going back to the original trilogy, they're just groundbreaking sci-fi. I mean, groundbreaking
Without
fantasy,
a
groundbreaking. All this, what we call, nerd culture, wouldn't exist without Star Wars.
No, Star Wars is the stepping stone. Yeah. We say that in our origin story. It was definitely the first for both of us.
Yeah.
And it's just such a big part of culture. I do have to include a story here. I promised Dad I would include it. So Dad, hey Dad, hey Nana. On May 25th, 1977, my dad took his mother, my grandmother, Nana, hi Nana, to go and see one of the very first showings in Michigan of Star Wars.
That's awesome.
He then attempted to take my mother on a date to go see Star Wars. They went to the 6 o'clock showing and could not get in until midnight. It was that fast that the buzz hit and just everybody wanted to see it.
It's crazy.
So there you go, Dad. I included that story. It's a great one. It
is a great one.
Definitely shows the origin of the Phil.
Well, absolutely. I mean, your parents went and saw Star Wars on a date.
It is your destiny.
My nerd card is genetic.
Couldn't
came
help it.
Through.
Couldn't help it. But, they experienced a lot of cool things in that first movie, right? I mean, so many iconic moments came out of the original Star Wars.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, when that, in the early 80s, I mean, may the force be with you. I mean, who didn't say, may the force be with you? Hey, I'm going to go try to get some groceries. Well, may the force be with you. I mean, it became this iconic phrase.
Sure.
That everyone used. The scene, help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you're my only hope.
There's just so many moments like that.
Yeah.
Even just in the first movie.
Yeah.
But as we move on to arguably the best Star Wars movie there is.
It's not even arguably. It's the best Star Wars movie there is.
It's arguably.
I will accept no argument. It's Empire Strikes Back.
You're not going to get an argument on this side of the table.
I will accept no argument from any of you either.
I'm just saying there is an argument that maybe there's another one that's better.
There is not another great best Star Wars movie than Empire.
There is another.
Not better than Empire. Anyway, but Empire...
It's a line from the film.
I'm aware of this.
Good.
I was doing it too.
Okay.
There is another Skywalker. Yes. We know this.
Yes, well, that's later on.
That's
anyway.
In the next movie.
Yeah, it's in the next movie, yeah.
But, in Empire, you have, of course, the most iconic movie maybe in sci-fi films ever.
Yeah.
No. I am your father.
Perpetually misquoted line.
Yeah, because everyone wants to throw Luke in there.
And
there's no
it
Luke.
Is not there. No, not at all. But, I mean, that speaks to just the character of Darth Vader is so iconic.
Oh, dude.
And just his likeness is one of the most recognizable faces in the world.
Right.
And, I mean, brought to life beautifully by James Earl Jones.
Oh, 100%.
Without that voice, Darth Vader is not nearly as intimidating.
No, I mean, if it's hey, I'm your father. You're not really scared of that.
It doesn't work, but when you got Mufasa growling at you,
right,
it's killing it.
And George again did that in the prequels, which we'll talk about with Darth Maul.
Yes.
But yes, again, Darth Vader, one of the most iconic characters, drawn from Japanese mythology.
Yeah, samurai.
Yeah.
Heavy influence.
Yeah,
on
so
the entire movie.
It's very, very cool that he brought all these things together and made this epic Star Wars fantasy film. The first movie, second movie, third movie, and then it moved on to what we have today. But just talking about these movies, I mean, remember when they came out, these were some of the most anticipated films.
Without a doubt.
After the first movie was released, and you would see news reports of, people standing in line to see it for the 100th time. And that's not even an exaggeration. They're actually news stories. You can Google that.
Yeah,
There's
check
stories
that
out there. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to see Star Wars, as we've talked about before. I was only 2.5 years old when the first one came out.
Sure.
Phil was negative something.
I would have been -5 when the first one came out.
I could not go. My mom wouldn't take me. So I was really, unhappy as a kid about that. But then I got to see Empire in the theater when it was released originally, and I remember going. I mean, it was fantastic. It was so cool.
Well, and I had a different experience with them in the theater anyway. I didn't get to see them until they were re-released leading up to the prequels.
Yeah.
Which was great. But
I saw them again.
Yeah, exactly. But they were the special editions. Yep. It was different. And
it was, but it was still magical. I mean, I was...
Without a doubt.
I was in college at that point, and I remember I had a class that I was doing really well in and I never missed, and tickets went on sale for A New Hope. Mm-hmm. And I skipped class to go stand in line to buy tickets for me and my crew. And the next day I had that class, I told the prof why I wasn't there. And I said, "Hey man, I had to get tickets for Star Wars being re-released in the theaters." And he's like, "Oh, I would have done the same thing. I get it. It's cool. No worries. I won't even mark you absent."
That's great.
We went and saw it, and that was that night. I mean, when opening night, when we had tickets for the opening show for Star Wars, I mean, people were dressed up. People were having lightsaber battles in front of the movie theater. I mean,
it's so cool. You don't see that out of many other franchises.
No.
There are a couple.
There are.
But, I mean, Star Wars was the OG, and they were the ones that really started that trend of dressing up, cosplaying to go and see your favorite movie.
Yeah, I mean, there are other movies. I mean, honestly, Rocky Horror Picture Show probably does that more than...
Without a doubt.
Anything.
Yeah, without a doubt.
But, it's cool when you see the major releases like Star Wars. People do that. Sometimes you'll see it for Star Trek.
Oh, sure.
I imagine for Harry Potter, although I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan, I do know that people dress up for those kind of events. Mm-hmm. And any franchise that elicits that kind of emotion out of people, it's truly amazing, that kind of passion. And Star Wars is the one that was the catalyst for it all. Now, Star Trek did come first, but even hardcore Star Trek historians and fans will say that Star Wars was really what catapulted Star Trek even further, because when you had Star Wars was so fantastic, the studios that owned Star Trek were like, "Hey, we got something that's like that."
I don't know if you have the answer to this question, so I'm going to put you on the spot real quick.
Okay.
Do you know when Star Trek, the original series, debuted?
The year in my head is 1966. I might be off.
That is correct.
On that, but it's right around that time.
In that case, I'm going to go ahead and say that Doctor Who started all of it in 1963.
In England, maybe.
In England, yes.
Where?
London.
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 London?
Yes, London. Fish, chips, cup of tea, bad food, worse weather, Mary fucking Poppins, London.
We're in the United States, dude.
Well, all right, fine. That's a total side note, and we don't even have to talk about that yet.
Of course, Doctor Who.
Doctor Who, yeah,
is huge.
The original sci-fi series.
But it's not Star Wars. Neither is Star Trek. Nothing is Star Wars.
Nothing is Star Wars.
Pulling us back into the topic, and here for May the 4th.
Chuck using his lasso of truth to get us back on topic.
Using the Force, dude.
Okay.
Again, got to pull you back on the topic using the Force on May the 4th. It doesn't work on me. So, moving on, we were on Empire, and the greatest Star Wars movie ever made.
Yes.
And the funny things, to me about Empire is that as an adult, to me, it's unquestionably my favorite Star Wars movie.
Sure.
But growing up as a kid, Jedi.
Of course, Jedi.
Was the whip.
I mean, space teddy bears. Come on.
Absolutely.
Of
Space
course,
teddy bears.
It's all for kids.
The Rancor monster.
Absolutely.
Jabba the Hutt.
So many cool things. And, we're not going to get past Rancor, Jabba the Hutt without mentioning Princess Leia, of course, in that scene.
Of course, but...
Every little boy's fantasy throughout the 80s was, of course, Princess Leia.
In a metal bikini, sure.
Yep.
But, you also have in that Luke Skywalker, who starts out as this, I wanted to go to Tashi Station guy, is
Pick up
now...
some power converters.
Yeah, is now an honest-to-God Jedi.
Yes.
And calm,
Walks
badass.
in with all the swagger of a seasoned Jedi.
And it's just like, you're going to do what I want you to do. And I know you're not going to go along with my plan, so I already have... You're not going to go along with my proposal, so I already have my plan.
Mm-hmm.
I already sent all these people here ahead of time. Lando's been living with you for a while. You don't know it.
Right.
I sent in Leia to come and try to do this, and in case stuff would happen. I've had R2, my dude there. He knows the whole thing. He's got a lightsaber in him, by the way,
Serving
for the
drinks.
record.
What are you doing here? I can see you're serving drinks.
Right, exactly. So, it's a good culmination of the original series.
It is, yes.
Because at the time when that series Jedi came out and they finally defeat the Empire, and Luke turns his father back to Anakin Skywalker from Darth Vader, defeats the Emperor, is now the hope going forward, and the man, presumably, which unfortunately we don't get to see for 20 some odd years, and we'll talk about that in one of our upcoming episodes.
Yes, as part of 4 for the 4th, we will be
so
discussing
it's out
that.
there, and you can go watch it after this one if you want. Be completely out of order like Star Wars, that's fine.
Do these, absolutely. I will encourage you to watch these in any order you want.
Exactly, for sure. But Luke presumably now is the man, and then the series ends with them all partying with the teddy bears on Endor originally.
Yep.
Until the changes.
Yub Nub.
Which brings me out. You stole my thunder.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. I did mean to.
He did. He's all mad at me talking about his man crush on Baron Zemo. Yeah, they took away Yub Nub.
That's a different episode.
They took away Yub Nub.
They did.
And how do you have this movie with space teddy bears and you don't have Yub Nub? Jedi ends with Yub Nub.
You'd have to ask George. You'd have to ask George.
They make the changes and, Coruscant and all that stuff.
Right, which was interesting to me, and we'll talk about it when we get to the prequels, but seeing Coruscant in the prequels was actually a really cool thing for me, because it's mentioned and the Senate and all that, and you don't see any of that in the original trilogy.
But if you were to now, okay, because I'm sure George wanted to bring some continuity between them, but if you were to watch it now, you would, and you watch it in order that they're numbered, not the release order, you would already know what Coruscant looks like. You would know all of that. But when you were growing up and watching Star Wars, and you heard about whispers of the Clone Wars and the Old Republic and the Imperial, and the Senate, and you didn't know what any of that stuff looked like.
Right.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, the original figures, it wasn't, there was a variation at least that was a 0B1 Kenobi. Yeah. Not Obi-Wan.
Right.
Like implying that maybe this is Old Ben #1 clone. Right, that's what I always thought as a kid. Like, oh, that's what the Clone Wars about. They were cloning dudes,
right? Well, and then we come to find out that
it was different.
Exactly
we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a lot of the changes that George has made post release and multiple releases. It's been like he's made the original trilogy specifically, in all of them, a living, breathing document, essentially.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Let's talk a little bit about the foresight that George Lucas had, just knowing what was coming next and producing the original trilogies the way he did. So mentioning things like Coruscant, like the Senate, and knowing those things are going to come into play later, even the relationship between Luke and Leia, maybe he didn't quite have that hashed out just yet.
I don't know. I mean, there were rumors. I remember reading articles when I was a younger kid that he had written all 9 of the stories before he ever filmed a movie.
I had read 12, not 9.
And okay, so in any event, he had it all mapped out.
Yes, that's correct.
Already, and chose intentionally to start where he did.
Yes, well, it was the easiest to portray with the technology available at the time.
That makes sense.
And frankly, a lot of the prequels is talking politics and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not the best way to get you, sucked into that universe.
Well, no. I mean, if you would have released them as they stand as movies now, released the prequels first, I don't think you would have been as enthused for the next trilogy.
Right. Agreed.
Honestly.
I
Not
mean,
that I don't love the prequels. I do, but...
I do too. But
it's not the original trilogy.
You love
magic.
them because of the gaps they fill in the story, and
Yes.
you're looking at familiar characters.
Yes.
That's why I love the prequels.
Yeah.
But you look back and you see
the sequels you love because of the continuation of the stories of your familiar characters.
That's correct.
I mean, it all goes back to the original trilogy.
Of course it does.
Everything goes back to the original trilogy. Of course it does, as you said, because it's all genesis from those movies.
Right. Exactly. Now, I'd like to touch on something you talked about briefly: the evolution of Luke Skywalker.
Yeah.
From whiny little kid.
Yeah.
Into bomb-ass Jedi.
Yeah.
And there are so many people that say, oh, Luke's just a little whiny whatever. And
I wholeheartly disagree with that.
I agree. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And you know what? He was a teenager. Of course, he's going to whine a little bit. But we look back and...
Luke is supposed to be 17 in the first movie.
Exactly. So he's a whiny teenager. Of course he's a whiny teenager. And he grows into this awesome Jedi. But that's also, they mentioned, this is too much of his father in him. That was Anakin. He was a whiny little brat all the time.
He was. Even, and we'll talk about that more in the prequel series.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, he absolutely has too much of his father in him. But they also, Luke, and we'll talk about that in the sequel series, the treatment of Luke in that series, because I think a lot of Star Wars fans like me, when we talk about the extended universe, we'll talk about what we finally see Luke as what we always felt he should be.
Exactly.
Post-Jedi. So, Luke is a character for people my age that, Luke Skywalker is the hero.
Exactly. And amazingly enough, the more recognizable of the two is the villain.
Well, Darth Vader is like the coolest. I mean, he's my favorite Star Wars character.
I would have to say, prior to the extended stuff, the Mandalorian, things like that, it was Darth Vader. And now I'm thinking Boba Fett's kind of
I'm still Darth
my
Vader.
favorite, but...
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Phil.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Really am. I think with that, we're going to give it a wrap on the original trilogy.
Impressive.
Join us for the rest of 4 for the 4th out right now. Go check them out right this second. We're going to be covering the prequels, the sequels, and all the other stuff.
May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th be with you, and what's on your nerd card.